Coming up on today's show, Labour MP Andy Burnham tells us all about his campaign to become Greater Manchester Mayor.
And this week is Sexual Abuse Awareness Week, and to mark the occasion, we hear from some victims.
And we've got all the latest with sport and entertainment. Hello and welcome to the first Quays News of 2017 with Jennifer Smith and James Diamond.
And as you may have noticed, that was our brand new title music created by David Lowe in collaboration with our very own graphic designer Thomas Foster. It's nice and catchy, that, wasn't it?
Absolute work of art, I'd call it, Jen. Now, Monday saw two young men plead guilty to a racist attack on a US Army veteran whilst travelling on a Manchester tram in June last year. Here's some footage of the attack.
How old are you? Bro, I'll waste you, I'll waste anyone. Don't chat when you're not even from England, you little
How old are you?
little
How old are you?
What?
Were you 18, 19?
Our reporter Martina was at Manchester Magistrates Court for the sentencing of the two men, and Martina is with us now to tell us more. Thanks for joining us, Martina. So what can you tell us about the court case yesterday?
So first of all, I think it's worth mentioning that there are three defendants in this case. A 16-year-old boy that was charged and sentenced at youth court on Monday, 19-year-old Aaron Kaki and 20-year-old Robert Molloy. Well, these two were actually at the Crown Court, at the Magistrates Court yesterday because of being sentenced, but only one of them was actually able to receive his ruling, as Aaron Kaki fell ill during the break, where the magistrate were out deciding on the ruling. So Kaki was actually brought to hospital, and for this reason his sentencing has been adjourned until the 21st of February.
So what was the reaction in court then, especially when you were told that one of the defendants had fallen ill?
Well, we actually didn't see him falling ill because he was in another room, but we were told by the clerk that he was suffering from some severe stomach pains, and his lawyer actually confirmed that as well, because he said that his client had told him in the morning that he wasn't feeling very well. So, and 20 minutes after that, we learned that an ambulance was coming to the court to take him to the hospital.
And what was the sentencing for the other defendant, Molloy?
Well, Molloy, he was sentenced to 24 weeks of jail, but it's interesting to notice that for what he'd done, the sentence could have easily been of 12 weeks, but because of the racist aggravation, that was brought to 24. And he was also given a 2-year criminal behaviour order, which means that he's banned from any trams, any Metrolink trams across the nation, and he's also banned from speaking to the co-defendant as well. And he's also expected to be paying £400 of costs and £50 compensation to each victim. So a total amount of £550.
And we know that this attack happened just 5 days after the EU referendum vote. Now, do we know whether this attack was triggered by that vote?
Well, we can't exactly say that the defendant, they acted because of the referendum, but what we can say is that the Home Office released some statistics that show that there's been a 41% increase in the number of hate crimes following the referendum. So we can only say that.
And do we know if anyone else was involved in this attack? I mean, I know that it was against a US veteran, but was there any other victims?
There was a passerby as well that was verbally abused, and a cyclist as well that was spat at. So the victims are, they're actually free.
Yeah.
Awful attack that. It's horrible to hear that certain things like that are happening now that we're, voted to leave Brexit and everything. Even if it wasn't directly related, it's such a shame, I think, to hear things like that.
But thank you for joining us, Martina.
Yeah, thanks very much. So now, moving on then, in May this year, Greater Manchester will be getting a mayor, despite the City of Manchester voting against having one. The original proposal was reformed to create a Greater Manchester mayor covering all 10 boroughs.
In the first of a series of interviews with Greater Manchester's mayoral candidates, our reporter Sapphire Beamish spoke to Labour candidate Andy Burnham about his vision for the area.
Manchester's getting his first directly elected mayor. But what does that even mean? According to council, it means more money and more power for decisions made right here in Manchester.
I've been a Greater Manchester MP for 16 years in Lee, and in those 16 years I've seen how London-centric our country is. One of the things that comes with the devolution deal is the power to re-regulate the buses. And believe me, I'll be using those powers. If people in London had Greater Manchester's transport system, there would be riots on the streets. They would not put up with it. I want the free bus pass or concessionary pass, depending on what we can afford, for 16 to 18-year-olds. I want more council housing, more affordable homes to rent or to own in all of the 10 boroughs of Greater Manchester. And for older people, I think we need to see a real change in the way social care is delivered.
Next week, Sapphire will be interviewing Conservative candidate Sean Anstey.
Now, this week is Sexual Abuse and Sexual Violence Awareness Week, and our reporter Joanna Hickson went to meet some survivors to hear their stories.
Please be aware that some viewers might find some of this footage distressing.
This week, the government released its white paper on housing.
It must be great.
Sorry about that, we had a bit of a technical issue there.
Right, we'll move on from that then. So
protests against US Donald Trump are set to continue in Manchester city centre this month.
it's in the wake of his controversial executive order attempting to ban the arrival of immigrants from 7 majority Muslim countries. Gillian McMath has all the details.
Thousands of people have taken to the streets of Manchester since the inauguration of US President Donald Trump. The masses you see behind me are speaking out against the executive order to ban US entry from 7 Muslim-majority countries. On Friday, a federal judge in Seattle temporarily blocked President Trump's order, ruling that the ban should be lifted immediately nationwide. Some saw this as a victory, as to them, it proved their voices have been heard.
I think the fact that Trump has already had to back down with his ban on people with green card. I mean, I know people can say, oh, it was illegal and it went to court, but you see, if we hadn't demonstrated, it wouldn't have even got to court. It would have just carried on like a ban.
But the battle is not over. The 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals is expected to make a decision on the ban later this week, and experts say it will likely escalate to the Supreme Court. For protesters like Nadia, it's a stressful period of deliberation.
It's an issue that's really close to my heart. Obviously, my dad's from Algeria, which isn't one of the countries that have been banned, but you know, I don't think that all Muslims should be classed in like one group.
Many of those I spoke to say this won't be the last time they'll speak out. They'll continue to protest until their voices are heard by local MPs and beyond. Gillian McMath, Quays News.
Very sorry for that technical glitch earlier, but we do have that package on sexual abuse and sexual violence. So our reporter, Joanna Hickson, went to meet some victims.
I was 14.
I was abused within my family by a relative, and that started when I was about 8 years old.
He just picked me up and I was just like a rag doll, and he just punched me straight in the gut and then locked me in his room. And I thought I deserved it.
The really powerful thing that happened for me at that time was that nobody told me it wasn't my fault. So I kind of went a very long time thinking that this was something that I had been as complicit in as he was, and that it had been my decision. And I knew it wasn't. I knew I didn't want it to happen. I knew that I had said no and that I hadn't been heard. But somewhere I believed that it was my fault for a long, long time.
I used to cut my wrist, and just for a fraction, just that second, that split cut, the pain went away. Which sounds very contradictory, sounds very strange, but it did, because that's all you focus on, and it just, all the emotional burden just drifted away for that second.
We hold all this hurt in our bodies because it's where it happened, it's where the accident was that wasn't an accident, and in that we can become enemies with ourselves, really. So for a long, long, long time I have hated my body, I've treated it appallingly, and I've been disinterested in what happened to it because it was the reason I was in this mess, because I was a woman. That was exactly why these things happened to me.
It could be anybody, but you have to open your eyes to be able to see it. I mean, people have said to me, you know, I'm from a nice family and, you know, I don't look the sort of person who could have been in that situation. Well, what does an abuse victim look like? What should they look like? It's been years and I'm not going to be ashamed anymore. Nobody should be ashamed of it.
I guess one of the things that helped recently was to really engage with that part of me that I had put a long way away, who was a little girl that I was really angry with, and I was angry with her because this thing had happened to her and it was her fault. But that little girl is me, and I don't feel like I talk about her in the separate way anymore. I feel like I've done some stuff that's integrated her into the whole of who I am, really, and that's been quite powerful while also really, really difficult. So it's about being kind, really, and if somebody wants to tell you, then listen. It's really important to hear people's stories. And I suppose to people who are recovering from experiences like this, then it's really important to know that it gets better.
Now, if any of you have been affected by any of the issues raised in that video, you can contact victim support.
Now, the government has released its white paper on housing in the same week that Salford City Council has revealed people have been living in makeshift beds in sheds. Charles Creasy reports.
This week, the government released its white paper on housing, revealing the inner details of its flagship policy for creating 1 million new homes by 2020. So on the surface, it seems simple enough. Get old people to downsize to allow young people to take family homes. But it was revealed this week by Salford City Council that families had been found in timber-framed bedsits, so-called beds in sheds, paying up to £80 for barely 10 square metres. Alec McFadden of the Salford Unemployed and Community Resource Centre deals with eviction and homelessness, but makeshift housing for him is a bridge too far.
I think we've got people in the world who would exploit anybody, and that's a fact. My dog actually has his own kennel, which some people call a shed, but he refuses to sleep with it at night. He only sleeps with it in the day. I think that anybody who makes money out of putting people in a shed should be seriously tackled.
Community leaders and councillors alike have universally condemned the practice.
I'm absolutely horrified that in this day and age people can be living in quality and conditions that you wouldn't let an animal live in. As a welfare rights appeals officer with 17 years experience, I've been aware for some time that people are living in substandard properties. Obviously when I come across people that are living in damp and renting properties that are not fit for human habitation, I always make sure that the council are aware, and the council do have powers to enforce.
400 fires in inner-city London makeshift homes have occurred over the past 8 years, some causing death and serious injury. In a statement, Councillor Paul Longshaw said, "Taking advantage of people in this cruel way disgusts me. My heart really went out to the families that had to experience this." With ambitious new housing targets for 2020 and people still sleeping in sheds, it seems the government has got its work cut out for itself. Charles Creasy, Quays News.
Now, with entertainment, Manchester is, of course, one of the biggest cities in the UK, and it hosts a huge array of entertainment throughout the year.
From the long-awaited 50 Shades Darker release to the Lego Batman film, our entertainment correspondent Sean is here to tell us more. Thanks for joining us, Sean.
So this weekend there's a Valentine's pop-up cinema coming to town, which I think is really, really exciting. Quite different because it's set up in like an old swimming baths. Showing an array of Valentine's films like 10 Things I Hate About You and my personal favourite Disney classic, Beauty and the Beast.
Oh,
and then a film I've personally never heard of called Moonrise Kingdom. So I think there'll be a different array of films, which sounds quite exciting. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah,
and this weekend, it's the release of 50 Shades and also the Lego Batman, is that right?
Yeah, 50 Shades Darker. Both films come out this weekend. 50 Shades Darker following on from the sequel to the last 50 Shades of Grey film, following on from the book. Meant to be a little bit more interesting, shall we say, and entertaining than the first film. And then you've also got Lego Batman, which is completely the other end of the scale, but both of them are competing for the top spot at the box office. So it'll be interesting to see which overcomes. I'm personally more looking forward to the 50 Shades Dark film after really enjoying the first one.
Yeah, I think I'm going to use the excuse of my nephew to take me to the Lego Batman film. And also I hear that, isn't there a circus coming to Manchester as well?
Yeah, the Moscow State Circus comes to Event City as well this weekend and is here until the 26th of February. So it's got some really promises to be breathtaking, some amazing acts with a gyrating contortionist and some Russian swings. So fun for all the family, so it'll be a really interesting thing to do.
And are there any concerts going on in Manchester?
Yeah, this weekend Drake brings his Boy Meets World tour to town, so there'll be a review of that on Quays next week.
Oh, fantastic.
I've never been to a circus before. Have you ever been to a circus?
No, I don't think I have. I think maybe we had a bit of an amateur one at primary school, but I don't think it was much.
Yeah, I can't imagine what it'd be like. I imagine it'd be quite a good thing to go to, but...
Thank you so much, thank you.
Now Rachel is here with all the latest sport. What have you got for us today, Rachel?
Thanks, James. Last week saw the launch of the Rugby Super League and the Championship at Lee Centurions. Our reporter Andy Riley was at the event to get the latest from the Salford Red Devils.
Quays News here to cover the launch of the 2017 Betfred Super League. This is what they're all playing for at the end of the season, the Super League trophy itself. Lovely bit of silverware. We've got interviews coming up with players from Salford.
We look at things quite positively at Salford these days now, and especially with the group of players that we've got, we believe that we can adapt and be flexible when injuries happen and use some of our utility players to make us as strong as what we were.
Yeah, because the number of signings this year are minimal.
Yeah, the big thing with what I wanted this year was I didn't want a massive turnaround. We'd had that for a few years previous, and I'm a big believer that consistency builds success, and you've got to have a process to that, and ripping teams apart every year isn't the way to go. You've got to build on it and work with each other, because players get the timing off each other, get relationships with each other, and the more they work together, the better they'll get as well. So we wanted minimum changes this year. We wanted it to be quality additions to the group, but minimum changes, and I feel we've got that.
And hopefully still one more to come in, provided he passes his visa. Any news on the visa situation?
Yeah, he went for that on Tuesday. He sent a text straight away afterwards, very positive, so hopefully that's all good, and 3 to 5 days we'll know the answer to that one.
So, Michael Dobson, this year's captain for the Salford Red Devils. Bit of a step up from last year with vice-captaincy.
Yeah, it's obviously honoured to get the captaincy. I did it for most of last year with Tommy being injured, but yeah, it's good to have it next to my name, and hopefully I can do a good job for the boys.
Priority for the season?
Don't be involved in the middle eights, I think, is a priority. The last couple of years I've been involved in that, and it's not a nice feeling, so hopefully we can be up in the Super 8s and fighting for the top 4.
The lads have been taking the mick out of Gaz O'Brien, haven't they?
Yeah, we don't let him live it down. Make sure he keeps his feet grounded. So he obviously played a big role in us keeping us up, but we keep him grounded anyway.
Some lads pointing out that he missed 3 conversions and he shouldn't have needed that either.
Exactly. So you've just said it again. So yeah, hopefully, as I said, we're not involved with that sort of stuff this year anyway.
Yeah.
Now to football, where Salford City dispatched league leaders AFC Fylde 5-0 in the Vanarama National League North on Saturday. After the game, we spoke to joint manager Anthony Johnson. Salford are on a great run at the moment, having scored 12 goals and conceded none in their last 3 games. Saturday's result means they now sit second in the league. Now over to the weather.
Good afternoon. It's a dull, cloudy day here in Salford, and that cloud looks set to continue throughout the rest of the week. Heading towards the weekend, there won't be much sunshine, but luckily there won't be any rain either. It'll be feeling cold with highs of 6-7 degrees Celsius, but probably a little bit colder in that wind. So if you are heading out this weekend, make sure you wrap up nice and warm.
And that's it from us today. We'll be back next week at the same time.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.